Marcus Aurelius Maximus wiped the sweat from his brow as he stumbled through the dense forest, his bronze armor clanking with each desperate step. The young centurion had been separated from his legion during a fierce battle with Germanic tribes, and now found himself lost in unfamiliar territory. His stomach growled with a hunger that seemed to echo through the ancient trees surrounding him. As darkness began to fall, Marcus spotted flickering light through the branches ahead. Hope surged through his weary body as he pushed through the underbrush, emerging into a small clearing where an old stone building stood. Smoke rose from its chimney, and the warm glow of oil lamps beckoned him forward. Above the heavy wooden door hung a weathered sign bearing symbols he didn't recognize, though something about them felt strangely familiar. The door creaked open before Marcus could knock, revealing an elderly man with piercing blue eyes and a long white beard. The stranger wore simple robes, but there was something commanding about his presence that made Marcus instinctively straighten his shoulders. "Welcome, son of Rome," the old man said in perfect Latin, though his accent suggested distant origins. "I have been expecting you." Marcus frowned, his hand instinctively moving to his gladius. "Expecting me? How could you know I was coming? I don't even know where I am." The old man smiled knowingly. "Names have power, young centurion. I am called Gaius Flavius Nutritus, keeper of ancient knowledge and guardian of secrets that have fed warriors since the dawn of civilization. You seek sustenance, do you not?" Indeed, Marcus realized his hunger had intensified to an almost painful degree. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. My rations were lost when my horse fell in the river." "Then you have come to the right place," Gaius said, stepping aside to allow Marcus entry. "Welcome to the most exclusive dining establishment in the known world. Here, we serve only those who have proven themselves worthy through trial and valor." Marcus entered the building and gasped at what he saw. The interior was far larger than the modest exterior had suggested, with soaring stone arches and walls lined with ancient scrolls and mysterious artifacts. The air was filled with the most incredible aromas he had ever encountered, rich and complex scents that made his mouth water uncontrollably. But what truly amazed him were the other patrons. Scattered throughout the dining hall sat warriors from across the ages, their equipment and clothing spanning centuries. He recognized the familiar red cloaks of fellow Romans, but there were also men in strange armor he had never seen before, carrying weapons of unfamiliar design. "This establishment exists outside the normal flow of time," Gaius explained, noticing Marcus's confusion. "Warriors who have proven themselves in battle, who have shown true courage and honor, occasionally find their way here when they are most in need. Some call it divine providence, others mere chance. I prefer to think of it as destiny." A serving woman approached, dressed in flowing robes that seemed to shimmer in the lamplight. She carried no writing tablet or stylus, yet somehow Marcus sensed she was ready to take his order. "First time here?" she asked with a knowing smile. "You'll want to see the regular menu first, but don't be fooled. The real treasures are found in our secret menu, items known only to the most experienced patrons." She handed Marcus a scroll that unrolled to reveal an impressive list of dishes. There were familiar items like roasted boar, fresh bread with olive oil, and various stews and porridges. But even these common foods seemed elevated somehow, described with tantalizing details that made them sound like feasts fit for the gods themselves. "The regular menu is excellent," the serving woman continued, "but those who know the hidden words can access meals that have sustained the greatest warriors throughout history. Dishes that provide not just nourishment for the body, but strength for the spirit and clarity for the mind." Marcus leaned forward, intrigued. "Hidden words? What do you mean?" Gaius appeared beside them, carrying a cup of wine that somehow never seemed to empty. Every great warrior culture throughout history has developed special foods, secret recipes known only to the initiated. These recipes were often closely guarded, passed down through generations of military leaders, and shared only with those deemed worthy. He gestured to a nearby table where a massive warrior with elaborate tattoos was consuming what appeared to be ordinary stew, though Marcus could smell exotic spices unlike anything in his experience. "That man is a Celtic chieftain from the northern lands. He knows the ancient words to request Ku Chulin's courage stew, a recipe that was shared only among the highest-ranking warriors of his people. At another table, a warrior in distinctive scale armor was eating bread that glowed with a subtle golden light. And that is a Spartan warrior consuming what we call Leonidas's last stand loaves, bread that was traditionally prepared before the most desperate battles, designed to sustain a warrior through any hardship. Marcus felt his excitement growing. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined. How do I learn these hidden words? How do I access this secret menu? Gaius stroked his beard thoughtfully. Patience, young centurion. First, you must prove yourself worthy through deed and understanding. Tell me, what battles have you fought? What challenges have you overcome? Marcus straightened, drawing upon his training and experience. I have served Rome for 7 years. I fought at the siege of Alesia under Caesar himself, where we built walls within walls to trap Vercingetorix. I've marched across Gaul, faced German barbarians along the Rhine, and led men through the marshes of Britain. I've earned the trust of my soldiers and the respect of my commanders. The old man nodded approvingly. Good. You speak with the voice of true experience. But physical prowess alone is not enough. You must also understand the deeper mysteries of warfare, the secrets that separate mere fighters from true warriors. He led Marcus to a quiet corner of the dining hall, where ancient weapons hung on the walls like sacred relics. Every great warrior knows that the mind is the most important weapon. Strategy, tactics, the ability to inspire men to follow you into death itself. These skills require more than physical strength. They require wisdom, and wisdom must be nourished just as carefully as the body. Gaius pointed to a section of the wall where scrolls were arranged in precise patterns. These contain the collected wisdom of the greatest military minds in history. Before you can access our secret menu, you must demonstrate that you understand not just how to fight, but why warriors fight, what motivates them, and how they sustain themselves through the darkest moments of battle. Marcus studied the scrolls with growing fascination. Even from a distance, he could see that they contained detailed notes about military formations, siege tactics, and leadership strategies. But there was something more, something that suggested deeper knowledge about the very nature of warfare itself. I'm ready to learn, Marcus said firmly. Whatever trials you require, whatever knowledge I must gain, I accept the challenge. The serving woman returned with a simple bowl of porridge and a cup of watered wine. Then you must begin with the basics, she said. This is standard legionnaire's fare. Nothing special about it. But as you eat, listen to the stories of the other warriors here. Learn from their experiences, understand their cultures and their methods. Only when you have absorbed enough wisdom will the secret menu reveal itself to you. Marcus began to eat, and was surprised to find that even this simple meal was more satisfying than anything he had tasted before. The porridge had a rich, complex flavor that seemed to warm him from within, and the wine carried hints of spices from distant lands. As he ate, he listened to the conversations around him. At a nearby table, 2 Roman officers were discussing the finer points of testudo formation, the famous turtle formation that allowed legionnaires to advance under heavy arrow fire. But their conversation went beyond mere tactics, delving into the psychological aspects of maintaining unit cohesion under extreme stress. The key, one was saying, is not just the physical positioning of the shields, but the mental state of the men holding them. Each soldier must trust not just his own strength, but the strength of every man around him. That trust must be built through shared hardship, through training so intense that the formation becomes second nature. The other nodded thoughtfully. And the men must be properly nourished, not just for physical energy, but for mental clarity. A hungry soldier makes mistakes, but a soldier with the wrong kind of food in his belly becomes sluggish and slow to react. The ancient recipes knew this, which is why they included specific ingredients to sharpen the mind as well as strengthen the body. Marcus found himself drawn into their discussion, sharing his own experiences with shield wall tactics and the importance of maintaining formation discipline. As the conversation continued, he began to notice that other warriors were joining in, each contributing insights from their own military traditions. A Greek hoplite spoke of the phalanx formation and how it differed from Roman tactics. Our approach emphasized individual excellence within collective action, he explained. Each man was expected to be a master warrior in his own right, but also to subordinate his individual desires to the needs of the formation. The foods we ate before battle reflected this philosophy. Simple but perfect ingredients, each one chosen for its specific contribution to the whole. A Germanic warrior added his own perspective, describing the berserker traditions of his people. We sought to channel the fury of the wild beasts, to become more than human in battle. Our secret foods contained herbs and ingredients that heightened awareness and eliminated fear. But this was not mere intoxication. It required years of preparation and spiritual discipline. As the evening progressed, Marcus began to understand that the secret menu was about more than just exotic ingredients or hidden recipes. It represented a deep understanding of the connection between food, mind, and warrior spirit. Each culture had developed its own approach to this relationship, but all recognized that true warriors needed more than just physical sustenance. Gaius appeared beside him again, seemingly materializing from the shadows. "You begin to comprehend," he said approvingly. "The secret menu is not simply a list of special dishes. It is a collection of wisdom about how to nourish the complete warrior, body, mind, and spirit. Each recipe has been tested in the crucible of battle, proven effective by warriors who staked their lives on its power." He gestured toward a section of the dining hall that Marcus hadn't noticed before, where the lighting seemed different, more mystical and ancient. Those who understand this deeper truth gain access to foods that have sustained the greatest warriors throughout history. "Would you like to try?" Marcus nodded eagerly, his hunger now transformed into something greater, a hunger for knowledge and experience that went far beyond mere food. Gaius led him to the mysterious section of the dining hall, where the very air seemed to thrum with power and ancient wisdom. The serving woman who approached them here was different from the others, older and more mysterious, with eyes that seemed to hold the memories of countless battles. She carried no scroll or menu, but simply looked at Marcus with an expression of deep evaluation. "This one seeks the hidden knowledge," Gaius told her. "He has shown understanding of the deeper mysteries." The woman nodded slowly. "Very well, but first he must choose his path." The secret menu offers 3 different approaches to warrior nourishment, each based on a different understanding of what it means to be a true fighter. She gestured to 3 different areas of this special section, each one emanating a distinct atmosphere. The path of the strategist focuses on foods that enhance mental clarity and tactical thinking. These recipes were developed by the greatest military minds in history, designed to sharpen the intellect and improve decision-making under pressure. Marcus could see warriors at tables in that area studying maps and scrolls while they ate, their meals apparently designed to sustain long periods of intensive planning and analysis. The foods looked complex and carefully prepared, with ingredients arranged in precise patterns that suggested both artistic beauty and functional purpose. "The path of the berserker," the woman continued, indicating the second area, emphasizes foods that enhance physical prowess and combat fury. These recipes unlock the primal warrior spirit, allowing fighters to transcend normal human limitations in battle. The warriors in that section looked fiercer, more primal, consuming meals that seemed to radiate energy and power. Their foods were simpler but more intense, with bold flavors and ingredients that seemed to pulse with vital force. And the path of the guardian focuses on foods that strengthen resolve and endurance, designed for warriors whose primary duty is the protection of others. These recipes sustain not just the individual fighter, but the moral and spiritual strength needed to sacrifice oneself for a greater cause. The third area had a more serene atmosphere, though no less powerful. The warriors there ate with a sense of ceremony and reverence, their meals clearly representing something sacred rather than merely functional. Marcus considered his options carefully. Each path appealed to different aspects of his warrior nature, and he could see how each would be valuable in different situations. But as he thought about his own experiences and motivations, one choice became clear. "I choose the path of the guardian," he said firmly. "My greatest honor has always come from protecting my men and serving Rome. I want to understand how to sustain that kind of commitment, how to find the strength to put duty above personal safety." The serving woman smiled approvingly. "A wise choice, and one that speaks well of your character. The guardian's path is perhaps the most challenging, because it requires not just personal strength, but the ability to inspire and protect others. Your first dish will be Cincinnatus's sacrifice soup, named after the Roman dictator who gave up absolute power to return to his farm. She led Marcus to a table in the guardian section, where the atmosphere was indeed different from the rest of the dining hall. There was a sense of solemn purpose here, a feeling that the warriors who ate at these tables understood the true cost of their chosen profession. The soup that arrived was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It was served in a simple clay bowl, but the broth was a rich golden color that seemed to glow with inner light. The aroma was complex but comforting, combining familiar herbs with exotic spices that suggested distant lands and ancient wisdom. The base of this soup, the serving woman explained as Marcus lifted the first spoonful, is made from barley that was grown in fields blessed by the priests of Jupiter. The herbs include sage for wisdom, rosemary for remembrance of duty, and thyme for the courage to make difficult choices. But the secret ingredient is something more mysterious. Water from the spring where Numa Pompilius received his divine guidance when he established the laws of Rome. As Marcus tasted the soup, he felt a warmth spreading through his body that was more than merely physical. It was as if the very essence of Roman virtue was being absorbed into his being, strengthening not just his muscles but his resolve and commitment to his duties. "This is incredible," he said quietly. "I can feel it working, but not in the way I expected. It's not making me stronger or faster. It's making me more certain of who I am and what I stand for." The serving woman nodded knowingly. "That is the true power of the Guardian's path. These foods don't change who you are. They help you become more fully yourself. They strengthen the bonds between you and those you've sworn to protect, and they provide sustenance for the kind of moral courage that true leadership requires." As Marcus continued eating, he became aware of other warriors at nearby tables, each consuming their own version of Guardian foods. A Spartan warrior was eating what looked like simple black broth, but Marcus could sense the spiritual power contained within it. A Celtic chieftain consumed bread and meat that seemed to connect him directly to his tribal ancestors and their protective traditions. Each culture, the serving woman continued, developed its own version of Guardian foods, but they all serve the same fundamental purpose: to nourish the warrior whose primary concern is the welfare of others rather than personal glory or conquest. A voice from a nearby table caught Marcus's attention. "The hardest part about the Guardian's path," said a weathered Roman veteran with the scars of many campaigns, "is learning that true strength sometimes means restraint. Anyone can charge into battle when their blood is up, but it takes a special kind of warrior to hold position when every instinct screams for action, to protect the weak when glory calls elsewhere." Another warrior, this one wearing the distinctive armor of a Praetorian guard, added his own perspective. "I've served 3 different emperors, and I've learned that protecting someone often means making choices they don't understand or appreciate. The Guardian must be willing to be misunderstood, to be blamed for decisions that were made for the greater good." Marcus found himself drawn into their conversation, sharing his own experiences of making difficult command decisions, of times when he had to risk his men's lives for strategic objectives or conversely, when he had to hold them back from battles they wanted to fight. "The weight of command," he said thoughtfully, "is something they don't prepare you for in training. Every decision you make affects not just your own fate, but the lives of everyone under your command. Sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be easier to just be a common soldier again, following orders instead of giving them." The veteran nodded sympathetically. "That's exactly why the Guardian foods are so important. They don't just nourish your body, they help sustain the spiritual and emotional strength needed to carry that burden. Without them, even the strongest warrior eventually breaks under the weight of responsibility." As if summoned by their conversation, Gaius appeared at their table carrying a new dish. "I thought you might be ready for the next course," he said, setting down a plate that held what appeared to be simple roasted meat, but which radiated an aroma of incredible complexity and power. "This is Horatius's bridge roast," Gaius explained, named after the legendary Roman warrior who single-handedly held the bridge against the Etruscan army while his comrades destroyed it behind him. "The meat comes from cattle that were raised on the hills outside Rome, fed on grass that grew in soil blessed by the ancient rituals. But the true power comes from the way it was prepared, slowly roasted while the cook meditated on the virtues of sacrifice and duty." Marcus cut into the meat and found it incredibly tender, with a flavor that seemed to combine the essence of Roman strength with something more transcendent. As he ate, he felt his connection to his homeland and his duties growing stronger, as if the very spirit of Rome was being renewed within him. "I'm beginning to understand," he said between bites. "These foods aren't just about nutrition or even about enhancing physical abilities. They're about connecting the individual warrior to something larger than himself, about sustaining the spiritual resources needed for true heroism. Gaius smiled approvingly. Exactly. The secret menu exists because the ancient warriors understood that human beings are more than just physical creatures. We have minds that need to be sharpened, spirits that need to be strengthened, and connections to our communities and ideals that need to be constantly renewed. Food is one of the most direct ways to influence all of these aspects of human nature. He gestured around the dining hall, where warriors from dozens of different cultures and time periods continued their meals and conversations. Every great military tradition developed some version of this understanding. The Spartans had their black broth and their communal meals that reinforced social bonds. The Celtic warriors had their ritual feasts that connected them to their ancestors and their land. The Germanic tribes had their sacred foods that linked them to their gods and their tribal identity. A new warrior approached their table, one Marcus hadn't seen before. This man wore armor of a style completely unfamiliar to him, with intricate designs that seemed to suggest a civilization far more advanced than any he knew. The stranger's weapons were made of materials that gleamed with an almost supernatural light. "Mind if I join your discussion?" the newcomer asked in perfect Latin, though his accent was unlike any Marcus had ever heard. "I've been listening to your conversation about the Guardian's Path, and I have some experiences that might be relevant." Gaius gestured to an empty chair. "Please join us. Marcus, this warrior comes from far in the future, from a time when the art of war has evolved in ways you can barely imagine. But the fundamental challenges of leadership and protection remain the same." The future warrior introduced himself with a name that Marcus couldn't quite pronounce, but which seemed to carry the same weight of authority and experience as any Roman military title. "In my time," he began, "we have weapons that can destroy entire cities with a single strike, and armor that can turn a man into a living fortress. But we've learned that technology alone doesn't make a warrior. The most advanced equipment in the world is useless without the spiritual and moral strength to use it wisely." He gestured to his own meal, which appeared to be some kind of synthesized food that nonetheless radiated the same aura of power as the ancient dishes around them. "Our version of the secret menu includes foods that can enhance cognitive function beyond anything your era can imagine, nutrients that can repair physical damage almost instantly, and supplements that can maintain peak performance for extended periods. But the most important elements are still the same ones your ancestors discovered. Foods that connect the warrior to his purpose and give him the strength to protect others at the cost of his own safety." Marcus found this revelation both fascinating and somewhat disturbing. If warriors in your time have such incredible power, how do you prevent them from abusing it? What keeps them on the Guardian's path instead of using their abilities for personal gain? The future warrior's expression grew solemn. "That's exactly why the ancient wisdom is so important. Physical power without moral strength inevitably leads to tyranny and destruction. The secret menu of our era includes foods that actually strengthen the warrior's connection to ethical principles, making it literally impossible for them to use their abilities for selfish purposes." He paused to take a bite of his meal, and Marcus could see a brief glow in the man's eyes, as if some inner fire had been rekindled. "But the foundation of all this advanced technology is still the same basic understanding that you're discovering here tonight, that true warriors fight not for personal glory, but to protect something greater than themselves." The conversation continued deep into the night, with warriors from different eras and cultures sharing their experiences and wisdom. Marcus found himself understanding more and more about the deeper mysteries of warfare, the spiritual and psychological dimensions that separated mere fighters from true protectors. As dawn approached, Gaius appeared once more at their table, this time carrying what appeared to be a simple cup of water. But Marcus could sense immediately that this was no ordinary refreshment. "This is the final course of your first journey through the secret menu," Gaius explained. "It is water from the sacred spring of duty, the legendary source that was said to provide strength to any warrior who drank from it with a pure heart and noble intentions." Marcus took the cup with reverent hands, feeling the weight of the moment. As he lifted it to his lips, he could sense the attention of every warrior in the dining hall focused on him. This was clearly some kind of test or ritual, a moment that would determine whether he had truly understood the lessons of the night. The water was clear and cold, but as it touched his tongue, Marcus felt a surge of energy and clarity unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if every lesson he had learned, every moment of wisdom he had absorbed, was suddenly crystallizing into perfect understanding. He saw, with startling clarity, the true nature of his duty as a warrior and a leader. It wasn't about personal glory or even about serving Rome as an abstract concept. It was about protecting the specific people who depended on him, his soldiers, the civilians they defended, the future generations who would inherit the world they were fighting to preserve. But more than that, he understood that this duty extended beyond his own lifetime, beyond his own culture and civilization. The Guardian's path was about serving something eternal and universal, something that connected all true warriors across all times and places. "I understand now," Marcus said quietly, setting down the empty cup. "The secret menu isn't really about the food at all. It's about the transformation that happens within the warrior who partakes of it. The recipes are just a way of transmitting wisdom and strength that has been accumulated over generations of heroic service." Gaius nodded approvingly. "You have grasped the essential truth. The foods are important, but they are merely vehicles for something much deeper. When a warrior eats with proper understanding and reverence, he becomes connected to every guardian who has ever lived, every hero who has ever sacrificed himself for others." The old man gestured toward the dining hall, where the other warriors were beginning to fade away as dawn light streamed through the windows. "Now you understand why this place exists outside normal time, why warriors from different eras can meet and share their wisdom. The Guardian's path transcends the boundaries of individual lives and civilizations. It is eternal and universal." As the mystical atmosphere of the dining hall began to dissipate, Marcus felt himself being drawn back toward ordinary reality. But the transformations he had undergone were permanent. He could sense the new strength within himself, not just physical power, but the spiritual fortitude needed to face whatever challenges awaited him. "Will I be able to return here?" he asked Gaius as the old man began to fade like the other figures in the hall. "The door is always open to those who understand its true purpose," Gaius replied. "But more importantly, you now carry the secret menu within yourself. You know how to nourish not just your body, but your spirit and your connection to your sacred duties. That knowledge will serve you well in all the battles to come." Marcus found himself standing once again in the forest clearing, but now the rising sun showed him a clear path back to civilization. His armor felt lighter, his weapons more balanced, and his mind clearer than it had ever been. The hunger that had driven him to the mysterious dining hall was completely satisfied, replaced by a sense of purpose and strength that he knew would sustain him through any trial. As he began his journey back to rejoin his legion, Marcus reflected on the incredible experience he had just lived through. He understood now that every meal could be a connection to something greater, every act of eating could be a renewal of his commitment to his duties and his ideals. The secret menu of the Roman warriors wasn't just about exotic foods or magical ingredients. It was about the understanding that true strength comes from connection, to one's comrades, to one's mission, to the eternal principles that make life worth defending. It was about the recognition that warriors don't fight alone, but as part of an unbroken chain of heroes stretching across all of history. When Marcus finally rejoined his legion 3 days later, his fellow soldiers immediately noticed the change in him. There was something different about his bearing, a new confidence and authority that went beyond his military rank. His men found themselves more willing to follow his orders, more confident in his leadership, and more united in their common purpose. But Marcus never spoke directly about his experience at the mystical dining hall. Instead, he began to pay more attention to the meals he shared with his soldiers, understanding now that even simple army rations could be transformed into something more meaningful through proper intention and understanding. He started small rituals before battles, sharing bread with his men in ways that strengthened their bonds and renewed their commitment to each other. He learned to recognize the spiritual dimensions of hunger and satisfaction, understanding that an army's morale was directly connected to how they understood the meaning of their shared meals. Other officers began to notice the effectiveness of Marcus's leadership style, and word of his methods spread throughout the legion. Soon, he was invited to share his insights with senior commanders, though he was always careful to frame his knowledge in practical rather than mystical terms. The secret menu had taught him that wisdom must be shared carefully, revealed only to those who were ready to understand and use it properly. He became a master at identifying warriors who were prepared for deeper knowledge, and slowly began to build a network of officers who understood the true relationship between food, spirit, and military effectiveness. Years later, when Marcus had risen to command entire legions and had become one of Rome's most respected generals, he would sometimes disappear for a few days, claiming to be scouting enemy positions or inspecting distant fortifications. But those closest to him suspected that he was actually returning to that mystical dining hall, renewing his connection to the ancient wisdom and learning new secrets from the eternal gathering of guardian warriors. The legends say that Marcus eventually established his own version of the secret menu within the Roman military, creating special meal rituals for his most trusted officers that helped them maintain their connection to the deeper purposes of their service. These practices were passed down through generations of Roman leaders, becoming part of the hidden traditions that sustained the empire through its greatest challenges. But the true secret menu was never about any specific recipes or ingredients. It was about the understanding that every meal is an opportunity for transformation, every moment of nourishment a chance to renew one's commitment to the highest ideals of the warrior's path. It was about recognizing that the greatest battles are won not through superior weapons or tactics, but through the spiritual strength that comes from knowing exactly why the fight is worth fighting. And that knowledge, Marcus had learned, was the most nourishing food of all.